A project initiation document is the single source of the truth of what a project is, why it exists, how it will be delivered, and what good looks like. And it acts as the contract between the project sponsor, the project manager, and the team that are going to deliver it. Think of it like this. If your project doesn't have a project initiation document, it doesn't have a spine, it can move, but it can't stand. Hi guys, welcome back to Project Management 101. It's Dave here. It's great to see you. I just want to do a massive shout out for all our new subscribers. We recently hit 500 subscribers. I couldn't have imagined that when we set out on this journey. So I'm really grateful to each and every one of you for following along and continuing your learning growth with project management. Today we're doing another bit of a special one. It's a deep dive into the PRINCE2 project initiation document, and this is one of the most useful tools within a PRINCE2 Waterfall project management toolkit. And if you're working in the Agile space, you can learn some stuff from this because it really helps to understand why breaking down user stories and features is so important. It ties back to the core principles of a project initiation document. So don't dismiss it. Remember, we value the things on the left in Agile, thinking of the Agile manifesto, but it doesn't mean we don't value the things on the right. We might just do it differently. But this is super crucial for it. So make sure you stick around to the end so you don't miss anything. And if you get some value out of today's video, make sure you smash that like button, drop us a comment, let us know what we can do better, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any more future uploads as we continue our learning journey with project management. Before we get started, if you can hear a bit of a background hum, I really apologise. It's over 30 degrees centigrade here in the UK today, so I have got the fan on in the studio where I'm recording, so I'm hoping it's not too distracting. Apologies if it is, but I couldn't bear to record the video without it, so bear with me, we'll get through it together. It's really hot. So let's dive in. A project initiation document is a formal artifact within PRINCE2, and it basically captures all of the decisions that are required to move a project started, and it helps anybody that comes onto the project at a later date understand what we're aiming to achieve. And it sets realistic expectations not only with the stakeholders, the delivery teams, and you as a project manager. What are we aiming to achieve? How are we going to get there? Within the project initiation document, you may hear this referred to as a PID, and we'll call it a PID for the rest of the video. It answers 6 essential questions. Number 1, why are we doing this? So why are we doing the project? What's the benefit? How does it help the business, organisation or client? Number 2, what actually are we delivering? How do we define that? So we might break that into a couple of sections and we'll cover those in a little bit more detail throughout the video. Then number 3 is how do we deliver it? What's our plan? Let's make sure that's captured and documented. Number 4 is who is accountable? Who's the person that's accountable for each element, whether that's the delivery, whether that's the decision making? It's captured within the PID. Number 5 is how much will it cost? What's the project's cost forecast? How much will it cost the stakeholders so they can sign it off and they're happy that spending that money versus the benefits that they'll gain is the right investment for the organisation? And then the final thing it covers is how will we know if we've been successful? And we'll capture this in a couple of ways. We'll cover this in more detail as we go throughout the video. Make sure you stick around so you don't miss it. So the document itself includes some core sections. And the first core section that you want to capture detail into is the project definition. Now the definition is here to help understand what it is. What is it? What's the aim? Thinking back to that start with why mentality, if you all follow Simon Sinek, have a think about that and then think about how would you define a project that you're currently working on? Maybe it's a small piece of work, maybe it's a big project. How do you define it? And then think about how do you write down that definition? Here's some ideas of what to include. For me, it's about a clear articulation of the project's purpose, any background information, and the problems or opportunities it's aiming to solve. By capturing the definition, this helps everybody that's part of the project be able to explain it simply. And to be honest, the litmus test within this is if you can't explain the project in one paragraph, you might want to think about, should we be doing this if we don't really understand what it is? And are we ready to kick off? And it helps to do that. So once we've defined the project, up next we want to describe what success looks like. What's the acceptance criteria for the project? What are the metrics? These could be OKRs, objective key results. They could be KPIs, key performance indicators, or they could be other success measures that you've agreed with your project sponsor and wider stakeholder team. And it's important to document those. Format could include a simple table or a few paragraphs of text describing what are the metrics, what does success look like for the project. So think about a construction project. It's really simple. We want to build a house. Great. Success may look like 4 walls are built, assuming it's going to be a square. It's got roof timbers, it's got roof tiles, it's got windows, doors, floors. It's habitable. That might be a way to describe success in that sort of situation. In a software project, it might be a little bit more complex. I've got a working software system that meets a need. Think about those things. Think what success is for your specific area of industry and apply that into this section. Have a bit of a reflect on your current project. What do you think the success looks like and how would you document it? Share a comment below. Share that with everybody. Let's continue to grow with each other. For me, this one's really important because this is the contract of what success looks like with our stakeholders and our project board. So think about those things we've just reflected on. We don't need to go into too much detail, but enough detail that we know that if we deliver the project, we meet those goals. Some might be a bit stretching, some might be a bit challenging, and they'll feed into other parts of the PRINCE2 framework where we might think about risk management, project exceptions, and tolerance. So we can define our project and we know what success looks like. Where do we go next? For me, it's what we're doing. So what is it? And we describe this in PRINCE2 as scope. And that's what's in scope, but also balanced, what's out of scope, and that's equally as important. And I've touched on that in some other videos throughout my time in Project Management 101, and you might remember it from some of those themes. But it's really important that we talk about what we're not doing as well as what we are doing. So when we're capturing scope, I like a nice clear list within the document itself. We are going to do a thing. We are going to do another thing. We are going to do another thing. So on and so forth. And that might describe user interaction behavior. It might describe integration with other systems. It might describe implementing new services. But what it does is it clearly and explicitly calls out what are the tangible things that the project will be accountable for delivering. And make sure it's clear, make sure there's no silly buzzwords, it's just super clear and tangible and everybody knows what the project is aiming to achieve. And that helps us, our project board and our stakeholder group reflect on the project definition and its success criteria to make sure that the scope that we agree that we're going to do will help to meet those objectives. And that's really important. So be transparent. This becomes a bit of a contract later in implementation when people might start asking for changes. You can always reflect back to your scope. So do a good job, do it early and make sure everybody's on board. And then let's flip it on its head and think about out of scope. I want to write stuff like, we're not going to give you an iPhone because we're giving you a mobile app. Giving you an iPhone's out of scope. It might seem silly, but by explicitly calling out the things that we're not doing or not giving you, It removes the opportunity for grey areas, ambiguity and scope creep. So take the time to document it, even if you think it's a bit silly. If you understand the context of the organisation that you're working in, take that time and tell them what they're not getting, as well as what they are getting, and make sure everybody's on board at the point that you baseline your project initiation document. So we've got our definition, we understand what good looks like, we know what's in scope. Up next, we're going to describe our deliverables. What are the project deliverables? If that's a house, like we were just talking about, the deliverable will be a house that can be lived within. Maybe it's got a driveway, maybe it's got a garden, maybe there's a fence around it. They're all deliverables at the end state of the project. Nice and simple when you think about it like that. When it comes to technology, where I work, a deliverable might be a software system or a website or something like that. And I would want to explicitly call out there, I will give you a mobile application. It will work on Android devices only. It will be available in the Android App Store. Great. I'm very clear about what the deliverable packages are that you'll be able to get. And when you read my project initiation document, you'll understand. If you don't agree, you might ask a question, why aren't we doing iPhone? Well, a reason. But it helps to drive that conversation at the point that you move through baselining and make sure there's no surprises. When it comes to the deliverables, think of it as the tangible thing that the project's going to deliver. PRINCE2 describes this as products. Under the product section, you might see product descriptions. They're a deliverable within PRINCE2, albeit not a baselined one in the same way that the PID is. However, they can be baselined and should be included in the PID. But they describe each element of the products or individual products that the project will deliver, and they have a level of analysis and definition against them also. So we understand the project definition. We know what it is. We understand the objectives, the success criteria. We understand what's in scope and what's out of scope, and they're critical. We've talked about the deliverables. What's the project delivering? Where do we go next? And for me, this one's super exciting. We go to the project approach. Are we doing Agile delivery? Are we doing Waterfall? Are we doing hybrid? How does the governance structure look? How does it play out? This is the section to document that. Keep it simple, nice tight sentences and paragraphs describing what it is, how that might come to life from a structure and a governance perspective at a top level. You'll describe it in more detail later on in the document. But just enough to give somebody a quick glance. Great, okay, I understand. And then they move on to the next section, which is the business case. And this is the part where your stakeholders, your project sponsors, need to share the information. What is the benefit of doing this? We've already described the definition of it, but this is really the meat and bones that really underpin the value that this is going to offer, not only to the business, but to the customer. So document the business case here. It should tie back to your KPIs and your objectives. Remember that definition of done. But it should also describe the benefits for the business. So if we're planning to make some money on this, great. How much? Why? And all of that should be there. So when you go in front of the project board or whatever the executive group is, they have the clear picture of, great, this is worthwhile investment. This is why we're doing it. And we continue that pattern throughout the entire PRINCE2 life cycle. The next section we move into is organisation structure and governance. And this is really simple. What I love to do is implement a small organisational chart. Who's the sponsor? Who's the project manager? Who are the different delivery team leads? Who are the key stakeholders that we need to be across it? Describe them. Even better if you do it in an org chart. Little bit of narrative underneath just so it's very clear. And then we're going to describe our governance structure. How are we going to get together as a group? How are we going to keep our stakeholders appraised? What does that look like? So we understand the org structure and then we understand the governance structure. In PRINCE2 and in project management, governance structure means the events that wrap around the project. So that could be a project team meeting that takes place once a week. It could be a project steering group where I meet with the executive team and give a really high level summary view across multiple projects. It could be a project board where I meet with the project sponsor and other key stakeholders and walk them through the latest position of the project overall. Could be the project risk meeting, so describing all of the different events that you're going to set up and facilitate for the project. This is the section of the document to do that. PRINCE2 recommends a number of those, so do reflect into the PRINCE2 manual to look at it. But for me, the minimum expectations I would expect any project manager to implement are a project team meeting, stakeholder one-to-ones, a project board, and then understand if there's any other forums within the organisation that you're working within. And if you want to get it all excited and get everybody's energy flowing, think about where you can borrow some of the Agile events, daily stand-ups, demos, retrospectives. All of those things should be interchangeable in terms of your governance structure to drive great culture through your project teams. And when it comes to governance, remember your aim is transparency. This isn't about bureaucracy. It's about keeping everybody informed and making sure you've got the right support to manage the best possible project and help the team and the business deliver the outcome they're aiming to. That's our job. Up next, the project plan. So what's the plan? Now we understand all of those things. We're building this with the team. We're building it ground up. We're going to keep it quite high level in the project initiation document. So a nice extrapolated up view, but we're going to keep it high level. Key milestones, key areas of risk, any mitigation activity that we're starting to think about if the plan starts to bump into issues. We're also going to highlight any clear stage boundaries or any dependencies that we have. That might be on another project team or it might be something else within the organisation. We need to call these out within the plan section so everybody's clear that if an issue arises, it could be that we need some support in one of those other areas. We might also want to describe the project stages within this section. So don't be afraid to do that. What are the stages we're going through? Maybe at the point that we're starting and getting the project initiation document signed off, we're at the initiation stage right at the beginning. The project initiation document is a living and breathing document that we bring to every stage boundary within the overall PRINCE2 project. And it's really important that it adapts and evolves as we go through. However, is continually baselined. And we keep that project memory alive. The next section is the risk management strategy. What's our strategy for handling risks? Are we going to implement a risk log? Are we going to implement a weekly risk review? What's our strategy? How are we going to mitigate risks? What's our approach and risk responses that we're going to take? Maybe we're going to accept, reject. There's the responses that are defined in project management frameworks overall, so do spend some time researching it, but make sure you're working with your project team to describe the right risk approach. Ultimately, you'll want a risk log, you'll want to take it seriously, and you want to spend the time working with the team to identify and mitigate the issues and risks as they're found. To be really transparent, running a project without risk management is a little bit like gambling with somebody else's money. Do take it seriously, even if it sounds really boring. So we understand the risk management strategy. We also want to document the quality management strategy. How are we going to measure our quality? Now, this could be number of test cases passed if you're working within a technology environment. And you'll want to work with your senior engineering leaders and your test leaders to validate what do we think good looks like in terms of your quality management. We'll also want to understand in the wider organisation what are the frameworks and the compliance policies that we need to follow to make sure that we don't fall below the minimum acceptable standard within our industry. If I work in a financial services industry, I might be thinking about the variant compliant bodies there. If I work in retail, similarly. If I work within kind of marketing, similar. There's lots of different compliance bodies, and it's really important that within your quality management strategy and approach, you think about meeting not only the quality of your standards in your team, but also those compliance and regulatory quality gates. The next section, every project manager's favourite, is change control. How are you going to handle change if somebody comes up and said, that's great, but I need this? You need a plan. So by implementing a change control process and approach, it allows you to take a step back, remove the emotion, understand what the change is, do some impact analysis with the team, and then move forward with a potential recommendation, and ultimately either get agreement or disagreement to move forward implementing the change. In big heavyweight waterfall projects, I've seen many times over the years, you'll deliver a project for 12, 18 months, get to the end and have another 18 months worth of project change bolted on to the end with all the change requests that were coming in. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to do it when you're delivering the project, but it does make sense to revisit it at the end and continue to keep the great team that you've got together working and building and iterating all of that great change into a production environment. It can be fun. So think about what's the approach. How are they going to ask for it? What's your documented template to capture the change? Think about the minimum details you're going to want. Want to understand who's raising it, what's the date, when's it needed for, how important is it worth some money? Think about the commercial value and all those things. Document it in this section. Make sure people know where to go, how often they can get in touch, how often you'll speak to them about it. Just be really upfront. So document that in that section. And then the final section that we're going to care about in the project initiation document is the communications plan. How are we going to tell everybody about all the great work the team's doing? We're going to write it down here. So that could be describing some of the stakeholder forums. Maybe we're going to run a monthly town hall where we're getting everybody together from across the project team and the stakeholder world. We're going to do some live demos of the code that we've been building or whatever it is that we're building. And we're going to get everybody super excited about it. Great culture. Write that down. Do some town halls. How about weekly email bulletins, letting people know how it's gone? What's the reporting? What's the governance reporting that sits within the organisation? All of those things can be called out here. I have to do a weekly report to my program manager. I have to write to my senior delivery leader every day, giving an update. Just write those things down. They're your communications outwards as a project manager. So don't be shy. Let people know what they are. We can always adapt and iterate them with other people's opinions. So that's the last section. I can't tell you enough how important a project initiation document is. The PID is the project's constitution, and it's really important to make sure you spend the time writing down some good quality sections as we've described in this video and getting everybody across it, reviewing it, and then ultimately taking it for baselining with the stakeholders. There's no greater feeling than doing a great project initiation document, setting your project up for success up front, and then going and executing. I promise I've got years of experience of those feelings. So if you love project management like I do, then you're going to love the project initiation document. I promise you. Call it a PID, a statement of work, a charter. It doesn't matter. If your project's serious, you're going to want to document those 12 sections we've just covered. It doesn't matter what the title of the document is, and your stakeholders will thank you, I promise you. If you think I should be including something else in a project initiation document, drop me a comment below. Share it with the wider community. We'd all love to hear from you. If you got some value out of today's video, why don't you consider smashing that like button? It really helps out the channel. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future uploads. I'm Dave. I'm really grateful to each and every one of you for tuning in and watching Project Management 101. From chaos to clarity, take care.